I hadn't slept in 36 hours, and the hospital air had begun to taste like copper, that weird, stale scent that clings to fluorescent lights and antiseptic wipes. I was running on cold coffee and adrenaline, just one more ER shift away from collapsing. My name's Tobias, intern at Renmar General Hospital, and I was cracking. After a double trauma code, I found myself drifting. My legs carried me past the usual vending machines outside the break room, the ones that always eat your dollar without apology, and straight toward the staff elevator. I don't even remember pressing the button, but when the doors closed, I noticed something strange. The panel had a button I'd never seen before. B scratched in with something sharp, like someone had carved it in frustration. It flickered when I touched it. Against my better judgment, I pressed it. The elevator gave a little jolt, then sank lower than I thought the hospital even went. When the doors slid open, I was met with a hallway that didn't belong to any floor I knew. The lights buzzed overhead with a dull yellow glow, and the tiles were a mismatched patchwork of grime and age. This wasn't a place people visited. There were no signs, no directions, just a long hallway that bent at angles that felt wrong, and at the end of it, lit by a single dangling bulb, was a vending machine. It looked ancient, faded reds and blues, its plastic windows smeared with something greasy. No labels inside, just blank metal coils waiting to spin. No snacks, no drinks, just emptiness. I should have turned back, but something about it pulled at me, like a hook behind my eyes. I reached into my scrubs and found a crumpled dollar. I laughed under my breath. What the hell was I doing? I slid the dollar in. The machine groaned like it was waking from a coma. Then the coils spun. Clunk. A small glass vial dropped into the tray below. I picked it up. It was cool to the touch, perfectly smooth. Inside was a pale blue liquid that shimmered slightly, like it was alive. But what made me freeze wasn't the liquid. It was the label. Tobias. Not printed, not stuck on, etched. My throat dried up. I looked around, half expecting to see someone hiding nearby with a camera. A prank? Some intern screwing with the new guy? But there was no one. Just that humming light, the buzz of the machine, and the vial in my hand. I pocketed it without thinking. My hands were shaking. Back in the break room, everything felt wrong. The clock read the same time as when I'd left. No one noticed I'd been gone. No one had even heard of a sub-level B. That night, I tried to sleep in the on-call room. I didn't. Not really. I drifted in and out, the vial sitting on the desk like a loaded gun. I dreamed of the hospital collapsing inward, its halls folding like paper, its lights blinking out one by one, and at the center of it, that vending machine, waiting. When I woke up, the vial was gone, but I could still feel it in my pocket. Even now, writing this, I don't know if I ever left that hallway. I tried to ignore it. I told myself it was stress, sleep deprivation, maybe even a hallucination. That's what I clung to for 2 full days. I buried myself in work, double shifts, triple shifts if I could swing them. Anything to keep my mind away from that vending machine, from the way the blue liquid in the vial shimmered like it had a pulse. But I couldn't forget how it felt. Cold in my palm, heavy with something I wasn't meant to hold. And then I started noticing things. Small things, at first. Clocks ticking backward for a second before correcting themselves. Monitor screens flickering, but only when I looked directly at them. A patient calling me by name before I introduced myself. She had dementia. At least that's what I told myself. But then the dreams came back. I saw myself walking those broken halls again, always ending at that machine, always hearing the same sound, clunk, and always waking up with a pressure in my chest like something had followed me out of the dream. I should have left it alone. I should have. But the pull was stronger now. I waited until after midnight, during one of those dead hours when the hospital feels like a tomb. I took the elevator again, pressing the strange combination I remembered by muscle memory. 1, 2, 2, L. Then hold the door close and hit the scratched-in B. The elevator shook, buzzed, then dropped. Sublevel B was exactly as I'd left it. Filthy, humming, wrong. The vending machine stood waiting like it knew I'd return. I didn't have any cash on me, but the machine didn't seem to care. As soon as I stepped in front of it, it lit up. The coils spun without me touching a thing. Clunk. Another item dropped. A photograph. I hesitated before picking it up. It was still warm. When I looked, I nearly dropped it. It was me, asleep in the on-call room. Same blanket, same half-empty coffee cup on the desk, same awkward angle I always twisted into on the cot. But the worst part? The timestamp in the corner said it had been taken an hour ago. No one knew I was there. I hadn't told anyone. I hadn't even used my badge to check in. I flipped the photo over. 3 words in red ink. "You look tired." I staggered back, the lights buzzing louder, flickering like they were laughing. I ran, actually ran, back to the elevator and hit every button on the way up. No one had seen anything. Of course they hadn't. And when I told Marcus, one of the other interns, about it, just casually as a joke, he stared at me and said, "There's no sublevel B, man. What are you talking about?" I even tried to show him the photo, but it was gone. Just a blank square of Polaroid paper now, like the image had bled out. I started watching my back after that, checking corners, locking my locker twice, sleeping with the lights on, and every time I drifted off, I heard it. Clunk, always right before the dreams began again. After that second visit, I stopped pretending I could sleep. I'd lie in the on-call room with the lights on, staring at the ceiling, counting how many times the fluorescent bulbs buzzed per minute. I started keeping my door wedged open, just to prove to myself no one was sneaking in. I even installed a cheap motion detector from the hardware store. It went off exactly once, at 3:03 a.m. But when I checked the hallway, it was empty. The only sound was a faint echo, like something had been dragging its feet away. I kept telling myself I had to get out of Renmar General, but interns don't quit, not if they want to keep their future. I'd worked too hard, buried too much of myself to stop now. That's when Elise was admitted. Room 219. I remember the number because I wrote it down without realizing it. Found it in the margins of my notes, my patient logs, even scratched into the corner of my ID badge. Always the same, 219. She was about 19, maybe 20. No ID, no emergency contact. Her intake sheet just said, "Found unresponsive, burn marks, unknown origin." When I walked into her room, she was already awake, sitting up in bed like she'd been waiting. "Hi, Tobias," she said. I stopped cold. I hadn't introduced myself. "How do you know my name?" She smiled faintly. "Everyone here does. They just don't remember yet." I thought she was delirious. Maybe a head injury. Maybe trauma. But her vitals were fine. In fact, they were too fine. Her heart rate was a perfect 60 beats per minute. Her temperature, perfect. Reflexes, flawless. But she didn't blink. Not once during the exam. When I brought up the case to Dr. Kellner, he brushed it off. "She's stable. Probably a runaway high on something. Just keep her monitored." But every time I passed room 219, she was staring at me. No matter what time, no matter where I stood. I didn't go back to sublevel B for 3 days. I tried to resist it. But by the 4th night, the pressure built again. That itch behind my eyes. That magnetic pull in my bones. This time, when I stepped off the elevator, the lights didn't flicker. They were off. The vending machine glowed on its own. It purred when I approached. I didn't even put money in. Clunk. A stethoscope this time. Sleek, old-fashioned, the kind you'd see in war documentaries. I held it up to the vending machine's glass, and I swear I could hear something ticking inside. Not mechanical, biological. Back upstairs, I slipped it into my coat pocket. Didn't mention it to anyone. Later that shift, I checked on Elise. She was asleep, or pretending to be. I slipped the stethoscope on, heart racing, and placed it against her chest. The sound that came through the earpieces wasn't a heartbeat. It was whispering, dozens of voices, layered over each other, saying things in a language I couldn't understand. Rhythmic, urgent, like chanting through static. Elise opened her eyes. "You shouldn't have brought that here," she said. I ripped the stethoscope off like it had burned me. My ears rang for hours after. When I looked at the stethoscope again the next morning, its surface no longer reflected anything. Not me, not the ceiling, just a blank void of black. I stopped wearing it, but I couldn't throw it away, because deep down, I felt like it was still listening. After Elise whispered to me, I avoided room 219 entirely. I even changed the patient rotation schedule, claiming a clerical error. Nobody questioned it. It was easier to shuffle her care around than admit she terrified me. That stethoscope, still locked in my drawer, started ticking now when I got near it. No one else could hear it. Of course they couldn't. One night, during rounds, I saw her again, standing at the end of the hallway. She wasn't in her bed. She wasn't even in a hospital gown. She wore something else, like a black dress that moved unnaturally, fluttering even though there was no breeze. When I blinked, she was gone. I told myself it was the lack of sleep, but my dreams had become so vivid, so cruel, they didn't feel like dreams anymore. They felt like memories, except they weren't mine. Memories of a place buried beneath the hospital, older than its foundation. A circular chamber, walls covered in veins, and always that machine at the center, watching. I went back again. You can call me a coward, or a fool, or maybe just sick in the head. But by then I wasn't sure the hospital was real anymore. Not completely. Sublevel B welcomed me without hesitation. The elevator didn't jolt or buzz. It just opened like a mouth. The vending machine was waiting, humming louder now. There was no need to press anything. I didn't feed it change. It just knew. Clunk. A folded note. My hands trembled as I picked it up. It was crisp, white paper, neat handwriting in dark ink. Do not save the girl in room 219. She is not human. My mouth went dry. Beneath the sentence, scrawled in a less steady hand, barely legible. This is the last time I get to warn you. Please listen. T. As in Tobias. My own handwriting, a little more jagged, a little older. I nearly dropped it. My ears rang. I staggered back against the opposite wall, breathing fast. Somewhere far behind me, the lights down the corridor flickered and went black, one by one, until only the machine was illuminated. I didn't go back upstairs right away. I sat there for a while, hunched in the filth, staring at the note. If this was a warning from my future self, what the hell was I supposed to do with it? I returned to the surface like a man surfacing from a drowning. The halls looked fake, too clean. The people, too stiff, like they were part of some set. The next morning, Elise was gone. Room 219 was spotless, like no one had ever stayed there. No paperwork, no wristband, no vitals log. Her bed had been stripped. I asked around. No one remembered her, not even Kellner. And yet, later that shift, I found something in my locker. Her hospital bracelet, still warm. That night, the elevator buttons were scrambled. letters where numbers should be, some symbols I couldn't even read, but I still pressed the sequence. The machine was waiting again. This time, I didn't have to reach for it. It gave me something anyway. My old house key, the one I lost in college and never found. It had blood on the ridges. I took it, because I was starting to think this wasn't about Elise. It was about me. I didn't sleep after the key. I kept it in my pocket like a talisman. I couldn't explain why, but I knew it was important. Not because of what it opened. Hell, the lock it belonged to was long gone. But because of what it meant. The machine remembered. It knew me better than I knew myself. 2 days passed in a blur. My shifts were still logged, my badge still swiped in and out, but I barely remembered being on the floor. People talked to me, and I responded, but I couldn't recall what I'd said. There was a ringing in my head that never left, like a forgotten alarm. Then someone left a message on my locker. Just one word, in slanted black marker. Downstairs. I didn't hesitate. I left in the middle of a blood draw, just dropped everything and walked to the elevator like a man in a trance. This time, sub-level B wasn't the last stop. The elevator kept going. The walls grew darker. The lights inside flickered, then died. Only the vending machine's glow greeted me as the doors opened. But this wasn't the same place anymore. I stepped into a hallway that looked abandoned for decades. Peeling paint, mold on the ceilings, doors without labels. An overhead speaker crackled with static, then sputtered a single line. "This floor is closed for reconstruction." My feet moved on their own, past a gurney tipped over in the corner, past a wall smeared with what I hoped was old rust. I found the room by instinct, 219. The number had been scratched into the door with something sharp. I pushed it open. Inside, the air was too still, heavy. The room was empty, except for Elise, sitting in a chair across from a mirror. No, not a mirror. A window. But there was no reflection. Only a room beyond, identical to this one, but empty. She didn't look up when I entered. "They gave you the key," she said. My voice caught in my throat. "Who's they?" "The ones who built the machine. Before the hospital was ever here. Before this land had a name." I opened my mouth to speak, but she cut me off. "They've been watching through it, feeding it. You're not the first." She turned toward me slowly. Her eyes weren't human anymore. Not glowing, not monstrous, just vacant, like they'd been scooped clean. "Why me?" I asked. "Because you're breaking," she said, "and broken things leak." Then she stood and pressed her hand to the glass. The room on the other side rippled. I saw shapes move in there, human-sized, but too thin, too fast. One of them leaned close to the other side of the glass and mimicked Elise's motion. My hand twitched. I pulled the key from my pocket. She smiled. "They want you to open it." "What happens if I do?" She paused. "You stop wondering." That terrified me more than anything. I backed away slowly, heart hammering. Elise didn't follow. She just watched. The elevator was still open when I ran back, but the vending machine was gone. In its place, a hole in the wall, just big enough to crawl through. I didn't. I went back upstairs, drenched in sweat, shaking. But as I passed the on-call room, I stopped cold. Inside, asleep on the cot, was me. Same blanket, same cup, same awkward posture. I opened the door. The figure stirred, and its eyes snapped open. It was me, but it wasn't. He had my face, my clothes, even the same tired posture, but his eyes, they were too bright, too awake, as if he'd been waiting for this exact moment. I staggered back. The other me sat up and calmly swung his legs off the cot. "Don't scream," he said. "You'll wake the others." "What? What the hell are you?" He smiled, not cruelly, almost sympathetically. "I'm the one who listened sooner." I shook my head. Number no, this isn't possible. He stood and stretched. Time folds funny down there. You've seen it. You knew it before the note. You just didn't want to admit it. My hands were trembling. I wanted to run, to fight. But all I did was whisper, "Why me?" Because you're cracked open, Tobias, just enough to let them see through. They can't touch the ones who sleep soundly. But you. He stepped forward. You ask questions. You stay late. You notice what doesn't fit. That's how they find you. Through the static, what do they want? He paused. They want to become, and you're the bridge. I backed against the door frame. My head felt stuffed with cotton. The air buzzed with invisible insects. But you can stop it, he added. You still have the key. I gripped it in my pocket, suddenly unsure if I was holding it, or if it was holding me. You're not real, I whispered. You're another trick. He tilted his head. Then why does your hand hurt? I looked down. Blood. The ridges of the key had bitten into my palm deep enough to break skin. My other self smiled faintly. They're almost through, Tobias. The girl? She's not a warning. She's an anchor. Once she's saved, the machine finishes sinking. I couldn't speak. They've done this before. Dozens of times. You've done this before. He turned to the mirror on the wall. I hadn't noticed it before, but now it looked exactly like the one in the forgotten wing. A reflectionless surface. A thin veil. I told you. I'm the one who listened. I didn't save her. I left her there. Let them starve. He looked back. But maybe you'll make a different choice. Then he vanished. No puff of smoke, no flicker, just gone. I was alone again. Except I wasn't. Behind the mirror, I heard breathing. That night, I found a new hallway. Or maybe it found me. It wasn't on any blueprint. I followed it downward, the walls tightening around me, until I reached another door marked 219. But this time, the door pulsed like it was alive. I opened it. Elise was there. Or something like her. She sat in a chair, but this time her body was wrong. Distorted, like reality couldn't remember how to render her fully. You're almost there, she said. Her voice echoed, like it came from two places at once. I held up the key. If I use this, they get through, don't they? She didn't answer, just stared at me with those hollow eyes. I saw myself, I whispered. He said he didn't save you. A twitch at the corner of her mouth. And did he seem happy? I didn't answer. The door behind me closed on its own. The vending machine was waiting again, but this time it wasn't offering. It was watching. Its glass shimmered. Inside I saw hundreds of items. Things I'd lost, forgotten, broken. Pieces of myself. And at the center, something pulsed, like a heart, waiting to be fed. I stood there, surrounded by walls that breathed. The vending machine's hum grew louder, almost musical, like a distant choir screaming in reverse. The glass surface pulsed like skin, and something behind it opened an eye. I knew then, it had always been watching. It was never about the items, the vial, the photo, the note. They weren't gifts, they were bait, pieces of a test, measuring me, grooming me. Behind me, Elise waited, no longer fully human, no longer pretending. Her voice, when it came, was layered, like a chorus in a dead cathedral. You can still be free, Tobias. Just leave. Let them eat silence. But I couldn't move. Not yet. Not until I understood what this was. Why me? I asked again. Not shouting, not begging, just tired. She stepped forward, movements delayed by a second, like her body didn't belong to time. Because you're failing, Tobias. Cracks form where people break, and inside those cracks the watchers wait. You gave them a door. The vending machine groaned. It wanted an answer. And in that moment, I understood. It wasn't Elise they were trying to bring through. It was me. Not the me who followed rules. Not the me who feared hallucinations or doubted what he saw. Number. They wanted the version who'd touch the veil, break the mirror, offer the key. They needed a human will to choose them, a consent. All this time, I thought I was resisting something foreign, but I was the infection. You were never supposed to save her, my voice echoed, but I wasn't sure I'd said it. The machine opened. The front slid down like a jaw, revealing not coils or candy, but a staircase spiraling into blackness. On the first step, a clipboard. My ER evaluation form. Signed at the bottom, discharged. I stepped back. No, I said. The machine shuddered. Behind me, Elise began to dissolve, her face splitting into static, her hands turning into ash that floated upward. "You'll be back," she whispered. I ran, out of the hallway, up through the fire exit, out into cold, silent daylight. I quit the next day, packed a bag, left town. But the machine didn't forget me. I saw it sometimes, in reflections, on old TVs that shouldn't be working. Once, it showed up on a roadside billboard in the middle of nowhere. Just a black rectangle with my name beneath it. And sometimes, I wake up holding something I lost years ago. A childhood toy, my first phone, a burned photo I never took. The machine still remembers, still waits, because I never turned in the key. It's in my pocket, right now. I've tried to throw it away, melt it, bury it. It always comes back. And some nights, I dream of stairs beneath vending coils, of glass walls hiding eyes, of machines that do not vend snacks, but futures. And I hear myself whispering, "This is the last time I get to warn you. Please, listen." I don't know who I'm saying it to anymore. Maybe you, maybe me. Maybe there's no difference. But if you ever find yourself in a hospital, especially late at night, and you pass a vending machine that hums louder than it should, don't stop. Don't press the buttons. Don't look too long into the glass. And above all, don't take what it gives you.